The two former FBI agents who blew the lid off the most shocking murder of our time.
Washington's let America's immigration crisis fester for decades. Tonight, the president will announce significant steps to fix it himself.
And so what I'm going to be laying out is the things that I can do with my lawful authority as president to make the system work better.
When President Obama delivers his executive action decision to the American public tonight, there will be one side determined to do everything in its power to see it come crashing to a hard failure. One side that will be enthusiastically cheering and determined to see the president succeed. Pick your sides. Let's dig in from the left. Welcome back to Midpoint. Former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton and now political contributor, David Goodfriend. David, pleasure to have you back on the show again.
Well, thanks for having me back on.
David, let's get right to it here. Is it just not possible, honestly, that the president has truly overreached himself this time, and that even as I'm hearing and others are reporting as well, there's a number of Democrats who don't agree with this, and they're afraid this is going to make their job even tougher than it is now after the midterms?
Well, let's separate the law from the politics, which is very hard to do in this environment, but let's try. So if you look at the law and you look at what courts have said and what prior presidents have done, this really doesn't seem that unusual. President Reagan did not deport 200,000 Nicaraguans in 1987. That was his executive prosecutorial discretion. President George H.W. Bush did not deport Chinese citizens in 1991, again, exercising his prosecutorial discretion. And a very conservative judge on the D.C. Circuit, Brett Kavanaugh, who was appointed by George W. Bush, said, and I want to read this out loud, it's really telling. It says, the president can decline to prosecute or make pardon because of the president's own concerns, or, listen to this, because of policy objections to the law. So I think the law on this is pretty clear. The president can do it. And frankly, if there are those who disagree, they should go to court.
Well, but let's go ahead and be fair. I have to stop you there, David. Let's be fair. I wanted you to finish and get the point out here. The difference is that in the past, when the two presidents you mentioned took executive action, it was in conjunction with Congress. This is not in conjunction with Congress this time around. This is a president specifically spitting out what he thinks is right. David, to be fair, there are differences between the presidents that you just discussed. It is not the same thing.
Well, I think the difference is that Congress was not nearly as oppositional to the position. I mean, they didn't have to pass a law for the president to do that. Let's agree on that much. Congress applauded the act, yes, but they did not pass a law to allow President Reagan, for example, to forego those deportations. And I think the politics now, that brings in the issue of the politics. So you clearly have a group of members of Congress, particularly in the House, who vehemently object to what the president is doing. They have, as I view it, two possible recourses. They could go to court. There's no lock on the courthouse door. I would welcome that. I think that would be an important use of our checks and balances. They also could pass a law themselves. I mean, nothing stops the Republican-controlled Congress in 2015 from passing a law. And in fact, now incoming Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell often said, I want things to come up for a vote. Why is Harry Reid stopping things from coming to a vote? Well, I would argue you've got this bipartisan supermajority in the Senate that passed an immigration reform bill. Let's bring it up for a vote in the House and just see what happens.
Okay, now I only have about a minute left, and I know you've talked about the politics and the legalese here, but let's get down to my last question here. Is it not fair to say that there are even Democrats right now who wish the president would not do this? They find this the wrong path to take, and they are very fearful that this is going to hurt them again as we head on the slide towards 2016.
Yes, and there are other Democrats who are applauding it who think it's going to help in 2016.
Well, but certainly there are. But what about those who say that this is only going to, and let's use that phraseology again, that poison the well here. The president blames the Republicans. The Republicans say this is not like what happened with Bush and Reagan, so stop making excuses and work with us. Where do we then set this up here? Because somebody's got to work with somebody down the road here, and it seems like the president is basically spitting in the eye of the Republicans and saying, I dare you.
Well, I think the founders of our nation were geniuses, and they understood that there's always going to be rivalry between these branches, the executive and the legislative. And I do think that everyone has their own agenda here. They're not friends, but if they want to get things done, so if you want tax reform on the Republican side of the ledger, you want immigration reform on the Democratic side of the ledger, you're going to have to horse trade to get it done. If you recall, my former boss, President Clinton, actually got a ton of stuff done when the Republicans took over Congress. They horse traded. They said, I'll give you this if you give me that. That's precisely what our system was set up to do, and I hope it happens.
And that's what we need to do. I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. David, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show and get that other perspective. Thank you very much. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, break, and we're back with plenty of gaffes being made with regard to the bare-chested Russian dictator and how we're helping him get stronger every day and telling it like it is.